I'm going to share with you about the meetings between the Lutherans and the papacy and its relation to the prophecies in Revelation 13 and the healing of the deadly wound, and we're getting into that right now.
Queridos hermanos, la desunión es una herida en el cuerpo de la Iglesia de Cristo. Y nosotros no queremos que esa herida permanezca.
Just recently, I was doing research on the upcoming commemoration of Reformation Day on October 31st, 2017 by the Lutherans and Catholics, who have jointly decided that they no longer have differences. The two factions are coming together to commemorate the 500th anniversary of Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses to the door of the castle at the Wittenberg Church on October 31st, 1517. This thesis was a rebuke to the papacy concerning the issue of indulgences in sin which were being sold to the people. Jesus Christ gave salvation as a free gift without a price tag. Sin does cost, because we are told the wages of sin is death, Romans 6:23. However, the same verse says that the gift of God is eternal life. It's not a gift of the Pope, and since when do we pay for a gift? When Simon the sorcerer came to Peter in the book of Acts chapter 8 and verse 20, he was told, "Thy money perish with thee, because thou hast thought that the gift of God might be purchased with money." But not only had the papacy been trying to sell the very thing that Christ paid for and redeemed on the cross, but persecution was rampant against anyone who refused to accept the Roman faith in regards to these things. Martin Luther explained from scriptures in his theses that what the papacy was doing was unbiblical, and after this, he and his writings were outlawed by the church and his life was in danger. Has the papacy changed? Pope Francis only recently offered time off to those supposedly in purgatory. Purgatory being a place of burning, it's an intermediate state after physical death in which some of those ultimately destined for heaven must first undergo purification so as to achieve the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. This is not biblical. This is the same thing Luther spoke against in his 95 Theses, which was nailed to the church door. It's indulgence in sin. For instance, statement 27 of the 95 Theses states the following: "They preach human folly who pretend that as soon as money in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs." He called it human folly, foolishness. 82 of his theses says this: "For example, why does not the Pope empty purgatory for the sake of holy love? For after all, he does release countless souls for the sake of sordid money contributed for the building of a cathedral. Why not for love?" Well, maybe it is love. Maybe it's the love of money. Maybe that's why they're selling indulgences. And the love of money is called the root of all evil in 1 Timothy 6:10. The fact is that this 95 Theses speaks against indulgences 29 times. I'll leave a link to the document under this video for you to read. So who has changed here? Has the papacy come to believe that justification comes by faith? Or do they still believe that salvation can be bought? God have mercy on the people who are deceived and deceiving. But as far as Lutherans are concerned and those who are watching this, maybe it would be a good idea to nail the 95 Theses to the door of the Lutheran Church to let them know why Luther came apart from the Catholic Church. Now, what caught my eye about this article by The Guardian was the words, "After 500 years, Europe's Reformation scars have all but healed." What does the word healed mean? Is it used in the Bible? What's the problem here? What was the problem? Why did there need to be some kind of healing in the first place? Perhaps what Luther started had caused a wound of division, and that was what needed to be healed. During the Dark Ages, there was unity against the saints. There was not division, there was more of unity. The papacy was a religious power and it used the state, and there was a union of church and state with imperial Rome, the kings of the earth, to enforce worship. And we can read about this in the Bible. The Bible tells us about these things in Revelation 13:8, Daniel 7:25, Revelation 17 and 18. And this union with the kings of the earth was to persecute the saints. And there were more than 50 million martyrs during these times. And that's what is written about in the book of Revelation 13 verse 7 and Daniel 7:25. It also tells us that he spoke great words against God. Revelation 13 verse 6, and they claim to have changed God's holy Sabbath day, Daniel 7:25. They tell us the following from the Catholic Mirror, 1893. It says the Catholic Church, by virtue of her divine mission, changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. Furthermore, they tell us in the Sunday Visitor, Protestants do not realize that by observing Sunday, they accept the authority of the spokesman of the Church, the Pope. And also, they said, of course, the Catholic Church claims that the change from Saturday Sabbath to Sunday was her act, and the act is a mark of her ecclesiastical authority in religious things. A mark. Her mark. Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church is above the Bible. And this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1st, 1923. So a mark of authority, who's the author here? It's none other than the Pope. And so whose mark of authority is it? It's definitely not the authority, or the author is not the one who wrote the 10 Commandments, which is the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Now in 1999, the Lutherans signed an agreement that they agreed with the papacy on justification by faith alone, and that the protest was over.
Because in 1999, the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant Lutheran Church signed an agreement that brought an end to the protest. Brothers and sisters, Luther's protest is over. Is yours. In 1999, this was signed by the Lutheran Church, the Federation Worldwide. Later, about 5 years later, the Worldwide Methodists signed the same agreement. So the protest has been over for 15 years. And I get a bit cheeky here, because I challenge my Protestant pastor friends. If there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church? Maybe now we're all Catholics again. But we are Reformed. We're Catholic in the universal sense. We are not protesting the doctrine of salvation by the Catholic Church anymore. We now preach the same gospel. The protest is over. The protest is over.
Tony Palmer talked of it as the healing of wounds of division. I find this wording very interesting. Revelation 13 verse 3 tells us that I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, or the papacy. No doubt that there are wounds of division. Furthermore, we are told that those who are not accepting the unity were to be considered spiritual racists.
We may be living officially in a post-Protestant era, but many Christians today continue to suffer from spiritual racism.
And finally, there was a call for a law to be abolished that empowers spiritual racism, as they call it, which is Protestantism.
The first step in dealing with spiritual racism is to abolish the law which empowers it.
One law that I think that empowers Protestants to be Protestants is the First Amendment of the Constitution. And the First Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits the making of any law respecting an establishment of religion, ensuring that there is no prohibition of the free exercise of religion, or abridging the freedom of speech, or infringing on the freedom of the press, or infringing with the right to peaceably assemble and petition the government for the redress of grievances. Is there a law that empowers you to be a Protestant? The Constitution empowers free speech, the right to protest. So is Tony Palmer suggesting that these laws need to be abolished? It is on September 24, 2015 that Pope Francis came to the United States, the first ever religious leader to address the Congress of the United States. Not even Billy Graham has had an opportunity to do this. And in his address, he began to tell the United States government what they need to be on the lookout for, to watch out for. And who is he talking to here? Lawmakers.
We must be especially attentive to every type of fundamentalism, whether religious or of any other kind. The contemporary world, with its open wounds, which affect so many of our brothers and sisters,
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together.
Demands that we confront every form of polarization, which would divide it into these two camps.
Now, there's several things I marked down here from this video. Fundamentalists, number one, is what he said we need to be on the lookout for. What are fundamentalists? Well, the dictionary tells us that these are Protestants, or people who adhere to strict Bible interpretation. He also told us that there are wounds of division caused by these people who are called fundamentalists or Protestants. So where does the protesting come from? Ultimately, Luther protested, and then the protest of the princes, which followed Luther. But is there still a protest? Are there still people protesting against indulgences, paying money for indulgences, paying for the right to salvation? So, of course, that was what the Reformation was about. God has called us to come out of her, my people. In fact, in Revelation 17:1, we read the following. There came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials and talked with me, saying to me, Come hither, I'll show you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. The judgment. What's she judged for? Verse 2. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Now Babylon is a woman, and a woman in prophecy symbolizes a church. This can be documented in several places, such as in Jeremiah 6 verse 2, where God likens his people to a comely and delicate woman. She's the bride of Christ. But this other woman, if we read, she's considered a harlot. She's a far cry from his bride, and she's fornicating with the kings of the earth, church and state. And interestingly, the day that the papacy was in Congress was on the Day of Atonement, which to the Jews is considered Judgment Day. It was where the high priest went in and mediated to the judge of the people, presenting his blood to acquit the guilty. To me, that is very interesting, considering that John is showing us the judgment of the great whore. She's judged for her fornication, for her whoredom. And on Judgment Day 2015, what is she doing? Fornicating with the kings of the earth. I would have to say Babylon is fallen. She's been weighed in the balances. She's been found wanting. And those balances are weighed. She's been judged. And it's not by man, but by the word of God. So now we have President Trump coming in. He calls himself a really good Christian and a Protestant.
And I'm a very good Christian.
I'm Protestant. I'm Presbyterian. And I go to church and I love God and I love my church.
And he seems at odds with Pope Francis, and there seems to be wounds of division between them both. They were arguing about the wall and have differences on the climate agenda. Some of this I dealt with in the video, Trump and the Pope, Walls of Unity, which unfortunately was banned from YouTube. If any of you would like the DVD copy, just let me know. But with respect to Trump, he's coming in as a hero to so many, a really good Protestant, but yet seems so contrary to the First Amendment right to protest.
Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, you know, they would not do it again so easily.
The protest is over.
So the protest has been over for 15 years. And I get a bit cheeky here because I challenge my Protestant pastor friends. If there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church? Maybe now we're all Catholics again.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias.
I don't know what Trump is talking about when he mentions the good old days, but I can think of some days that were not so good when the papacy ruled the world and the right to protest was outlawed. The Bible was also outlawed by the papacy, but Trump has come in and he's promised to give the Christians great power. Perhaps he's promising to give the evangelicals all the power that was exercised by the first beast, as is written in Revelation 13 verse 12. Time is going to tell on that one. Trump did recently sign a religious liberty order so that Christians would be more tolerated, which is great. So did Constantine in 313 AD. He signed an executive order that was similar to the executive order that Donald Trump just signed. Constantine's order was called the Edict of Milan, which according to Wikipedia.com was a law ordering the people of the Roman army to treat Christians benevolently within the Roman Empire. Constantine was considered to be a really good Christian who really helped to give power back to the church. And I think that was in his own eyes. But what did Trump sign? He signed a religious liberty order for tolerance, anti-bullying, and this order makes him proud to make a major and historical announcement that he is going to visit Rome and the papacy.
Yet for too long, the federal government has used the power of the state as a weapon against people of faith, bullying and even punishing Americans for following their religious beliefs. That's been happening. That is why I am signing today an executive order to defend the freedom of religion and speech in America, the freedoms that we've wanted, the freedoms that you fought for so long, and we are doing it in just a little while right over here. Today, my administration is leading by example as we take historic steps to protect religious liberty in the United States of America. Tolerance is the cornerstone of peace, and that is why I am proud to make a major and historic announcement this morning and to share with you that my first foreign trip as President of the United States will be to Saudi Arabia, then Israel, and then to a place that my cardinals love very much, Rome.
Now, tell me, why would anybody want to go to Rome to help to push religious liberty and tolerance? Are they binding the wounds of division? Is there a union that is coming that will soon persecute those who uphold biblical beliefs? Perhaps a threefold union between the beast, the image of the beast, or the false prophet, and the dragon and his angel, Satan. Perhaps they must gather the kings of the earth, and then through them they're going to gather the whole world, as is written in Revelation 16, 13, and 14. Stay tuned as we will continue to bring you the present truth, breaking down the walls of confusion and giving God's people light, to lighten the path and to lighten the earth with his glory. It is written in 2 Peter 1:12, "Wherefore I will not be negligent to put you always in remembrance of these things, though ye know them and be established in the present truth." Is it necessary to remind us each time to keep on going over the present truth? Some people say, well, I've already heard that. No, we're supposed to not be negligent in reminding ourselves and putting ourselves in remembrance of present truth. This is what unites God's people. And also in the same chapter, we're told in verse 19 that we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well that you take heed as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. And there's a message to lighten the earth with his glory. There's a message that is written in Revelation 18 about this. It also tells us that in this message, Babylon is fallen, she's fornicated with the kings of the earth, and there is a call. Come out of her, my people. It's called the loud cry, the final warning. So be sure to like this video, subscribe, and also press that little bell so that you'll be notified when the next video comes out. Your prayers, your comments, sharing, and financial support are all greatly appreciated as we continue to press forward with the present truth.